Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for hitting play on the Rocker Dog Podcast, the only podcast that talks to musicians about their canine companions. I'm your host, Tim Dill, along with my toughest critic, Charlie the Golden Doodle, and today we're psyched to welcome to the show Nick Hexum, who's the lead singer and rhythm guitarist for the multi-platinum band 311. Nick joined us from his home in Topanga Canyon, and these are his 3 Rocker Dogs.
So we have 3 dogs. Luna is a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and we got her from a breeder. She's 11 years old, and I can always remember that because she was born around the same time as my middle daughter, Maxine. So it's easy to know how old she is. We got her from a breeder, and her grandfather was on the Yukonuva dog food bag. So she's like an actual show dog breed, or so they say. You never know if it's exactly true or not, but it was from a reputable breeder that we had to drive a long way to find her. And she's just been an amazing dog. She likes to run long distances with me. She's slowing down now, but I've actually never had a big dog make it this long. So I'm just really treasuring all my time with her. And then the middle, Django, our Maltese, that he's looking at me, that we inherited from, we bought him for my mother-in-law, and she passed away. So Django was bequeathed back to us, and he's a Maltese. He's 8 years old, which is around the age of my youngest daughter. And then we have River, who is a golden retriever. He snapped to attention when I said his name, and he is 5 years old. So I usually take the 2 big dogs on long trail runs around here in Topanga.
Was there a learning curve to that, like how far you can go or how far they could go, and at certain ages they were?
Luna was just being a Rhodesian Ridgeback. She was just meant for long distances, and my biggest problem with her was pulling on the leash. So I went and got one of those sporn harnesses that goes like through her armpits, so it kind of hurts when she pulls too much. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise she's just like pulling all the way down. So I that kind of fixed that. And yeah, River's at that age where he just loves to run. But I can only take Luna now if I go on an off-leash trail, because she wants to kind of drag behind. But I have trails around here where I don't need to use a leash, so I still can take the 2 big dogs.
Right. So going back with Luna 11 years, what was kind of the context to getting that particular breed? What was going on in your life at the time, with the band at the time?
Yeah, so I've always had at least 2 dogs since 1996, when I bought my first house in Laurel Canyon, and I got a Doberman and a miniature pinscher. So it was like, mini me and the big dog, same classic markings, the black and brown classic Doberman markings. And they were just hilarious to watch them wrestle, because the little one was kind of the boss. And I think that was Emily and Jake, and the little one lived a really long time. I think the Doberman, Emily, the big one, only lived about 6 years. And then I got another Doberman named Coda, who lived like only about 6 years. One of them had like a leukemia, and the second one had just like a torsion, the blow to twisting of the stomach that killed him. So then, and then came in Luna somewhere around there. And me and my wife said, I think we're just like addicted to taking care of things, because we had already had one kid, and my wife was pregnant with our second daughter, and we also got another dog. So it was just like tons of stuff to take care of. And that pattern has really continued now that we live out in Topanga on a ranch. We have chickens, a parrotlet, a little tiny talking bird, of course, the 3 dogs. We have a cat, which I said I would never do because I always thought I was deathly allergic but I've gotten used to this one and it doesn't bother me. Yeah, chickens, bunnies, a snake, a big ball python. So we basically live in a zoo, and
Right.
and we just like taking care of a lot of stuff.
Now,
And three kids, of course.
you mentioned that the girls, Maxine was born around when Luna came about, your other, when Django came about. Do they tend to line up with the dogs that they favor with their birth order?
I mean, they like to play with the dogs, but I'm the dog guy. I would say, the dogs follow me around because I take care of the feeding and the walking and the discipline. And so I'm known as the dog guy. And, growing up, we had a dog when I was a kid, but my parents really didn't know how to train it. So it was just like a little Cairn Terrier that was a complete wild animal and like no discipline whatsoever. So I basically learned dog training by, hiring someone to train me how to train them in the late 90s. And I got pretty good at it. And I passed a lot of those things on to the kids about, doing repetitive sit and stays and being able to tell them to go outside or go lay down. They run into their crate when I tell them to. And, I think having that, I learned how to I had a friend also who had big dogs, and just having that tone of voice where you can snap them to attention. And I had to actually kind of unlearn some of that once I had kids, because I would find myself like barking orders at my kids the same way I would at big dogs. I'm like, okay,
Right.
wait, no, that's not that's not the way to raise young daughters.
Yeah. Well, as a father of two kids, sometimes I feel I need to get that more barking, sterner order to actually get things done. Now, was there any, with these dogs and, a young family, was there any lesson learning? Were they going to pick up after the dog, or were they going to have any life lessons attached with owning the dogs? Or like you said, was it more you're kind of in charge? And
yeah, I think that to me, it's a good way to learn responsibility of just how to take care of something. So I will have them do some of the feeding, and when they're really restless and they're like, I'm bored, I'm like, perfect, take the dogs for a walk. So I think it's just important to learn how to take care of stuff. And we just like having a busy household. And then when it's like movie time at night, there's 5 humans, 3 dogs, a cat, and a bird all in the TV room.
right.
So it's like this movie theater full of people watching Wakanda or whatever.
Are the dogs allowed on the furniture?
I am not strict about that. In her old age, Luna has been jumping up on the couch, and I'm like, let me just put down a blanket so reduce the shedding on the couch. But yeah, they do, and I just think it's it's good for the soul to have lots of creatures around.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of good for the soul, I feel like, the vibe and the culture around your band, is that of, positivity and celebration. I know on your Instagram, you have stay positive in your, profile section. Do the dogs help with that? I mean, I feel the dogs are such a positive influence, having them, and obviously they do great stuff for you, get you outside and get you exercise, but just their disposition, to me, a lot of dogs are just positive beings. Do you find that? Or
yeah, I mean, I think that there's very much basis for animals to be emotional support. And there's been times in my life when I was all alone, except for my dogs, and then I really would notice that I could really calm down and feel better just from sitting with the dogs and petting them and playing and wrestling. Oxytocin, that we get, the bonding chemical when we are bonding with humans, also comes from bonding with animals. So I think that it's definitely good for the soul, and it fits into the positive philosophy that we have. And there's been sort of talk in the psychological community lately about there is a risk of toxic positivity where you just pretend everything's okay. and that's not what we're about. We're about, the struggle to stay positive, and also, purge the things they're holding you back, and that to find a real legit positivity out of life that's not fake.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back, how long have you been? I'll give you the context of this question. I'm going to ask how long you've been married, because if you got the dogs in 1996, I think the band really takes off around that time or a few years after. And if you were a bachelor with a dog, how did you juggle that? I guess the sitting and the sitting for tours and this and that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been married 14 years, and I've had dogs, I guess, for 25 years. So yeah, there was a lot of time when, for sometimes I would, when I would go on tour and I had, two dogs to take care of, there was a couple times that I brought the dogs with me. There was one tour, when I was when I was single and a bachelor, and I decided to get my own bus so I could have a recording studio modified, took out some of the bunks and had like a recording studio installed. And that was around the time of the Sound System album. And it was when we would go out on tour with Incubus, and I had my dogs in my recording studio, and I would have basically wild raging parties at night that we called Club Hexum. And the dogs were the mascot. And we would have just like a bunch of fans and the other bands and the roadies just packed on the bus. And the dogs seemed to really like it. All of my little miniature pinchers sometimes would get kind of nervous and go hide. So yeah, sometimes I take the dogs on tour, but usually I would have a friend house sit and walk the dogs every day and live with them there. And then other times I found a place in Burbank that did a really good job of taking care of the dogs and had a nice homey environment for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the dogs on tour, I assume that was a positive influence on everyone involved, everyone around. Were there times, and I only ask this based on your description of the parties, was there times that, it was tough having a dog? I mean, would you have to get up earlier than you wanted to without, to get them outside and, gone to the bathroom, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, being from LA, the dogs were definitely not used to it when we would get into really cold weather. So I had to, figure out how to get them little outfits and to keep them warm. But, that when I would take the dogs on tour was also a time that I just had like so much energy that I was happy to jump up in the morning and walk the dogs and stuff. But not all hotels allow dogs. So sometimes that was a pain in the butt. And so now I'm glad they get to stay home and just have their regular routine.
Yeah, I was going to say certain breeds, even, Dobermans especially, I think get a bad reputation and blackballed from hotels and, certain apartments.
Yeah, I've had insurance carriers deny me because they say no pit bulls or Dobermans. So I was surprised by that. I think my Dobermans were very, very well mannered, but I do see people have a visceral reaction to them sometime. Like, is he friendly? I'm like, totally. But, I'm sure there are mean ones out there.
Yeah. Just stepping back a bit, how did you go from, or what was the impetus to, it seemed like you had the two Dobermans and then followed by another Doberman, and then you switched to Luna, who's, the Ridgeback. Were you intrigued by Ridgebacks at the time, or?
Yeah. Well, I thought the built-in Mohawk was really cool looking. And I had just heard from multiple people what great dogs they are with kids. And for someone like me who's super active and likes to go on long jogs, that they would be a good companion towards that. And like I said, since both my Dobermans only lasted like 6 or 7 years, I was ready to, try my luck with a different breed. And now, fortunately, Luna is going to be 12 in June. So.
Mm-hmm. And given all the animals you described, do the dogs either get along with the other animals, or do they have to be kind of segregated from the others?
Yeah. Well, when the dogs run through the room with the rabbits, they thump like Thumper, they thump to alert the other rabbits that because they're prey animals, so they have like communication, and they seem to have kind of stopped doing that finally. We've had the rabbits for a while, and I do not recommend rabbits for a pet. I love having the bird. The parrotlet is great because when you walk by, she tweets like, "Hey, I want to play," and you just open the cage, and she'll just fly right out and sit on. She'll fly right out and land on your head, and
Wow.
really likes attention. But the rabbits do not care. Like, there's no seeming. I'm sure there are people that can bond with a rabbit, but it's not easy. So, and the snake is a good pet because they require very little. um, you can take them out every once in a while just for fun, but most of the time it's super low maintenance. But rabbits are a lot of work. But I'm always gonna, dogs will be my first top pet love.
Yeah. Now, I hate to, I'm zeroing in on Luna. I think I'm doing that because I actually had a fascination with Ridgebacks at a certain point, but I know that they have a strong prey drive. Does that show itself? I mean, I know you said that in the trail run, when she was younger, or yeah,
The
she would,
pulling,
take
yeah.
off.
Well, I notice, we have a lot of quail running around here, and she's caught sometimes. And when my young daughters, would see like a dead quail out in the yard, I remember my daughter just crying, like, "How could she do that? It's so pretty." I'm like, "I'm sorry, that's her instinct." But what I'm impressed with is that Luna will go after a whole pack of coyotes. She does not care. I mean,
Wow.
it's pretty amazing to go after 7 or 8 coyotes at once, and she just has this like high gear of loud bark and ferociousness that it's nice to know that's there if there was ever a problem. But she's never been aggressive towards humans. But River went crazy on the mailman once. did not bite did not bite him, but kind of I was acting like he was going to, and the mailman ran away and started screaming at the dog, and I was
Oh
like, "Oh
no.
my God, I'm so sorry." So I went and I gave him $100. I was like, "This is for your trauma. Go have a nice dinner." This time, because he's a good mailman, he brings the stuff all the way up. So
Yeah. Well, it's funny to hear that coming from a golden retriever. They just seem so fun loving. I know they're not beyond, being a dog, but I would think he would maul the
yeah,
mailman with, his tongue versus anything else.
yeah, you'd think that, and he is kind of the most submissive one of the pack. So it was pretty surprising when he went after the mailman like that. But it is interesting how the Maltese, the smallest dog, is not the submissive one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not based on size. It's just based on attitude.
Yeah, for sure. I hear that a lot from the small dogs. Did they all seem to get along when they were all brought into each other's lives?
Yeah. I mean, I the big dogs will be outside a lot more, and they're just inseparable, and they just love each other so much. It's just like to see them wrestle and play. It just That's why, to me, I've always had at least 2 dogs, because I love giving the dogs attention, but just to know that they've got each other when I'm away and stuff is nice. But so the Maltese is more likely going to be inside all the time, because there's so many coyotes and bobcats and mountain lions and stuff out here in Topanga. Django, our little dog, actually did survive a coyote attack.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I've had 4 different dogs attacked by coyotes, 3 of which survived, and one of them did not.
Oh,
So
sorry to hear that.
it's just, thank you. It's just kind of always a threat. So I actually made the rule: no more small dogs, even though you know other people in the family like them. But then circumstances changed, and this Maltese we inherited it, so we
Yeah.
let him stay inside to keep him safe.
Now, in terms of mischief, and this can go through your history of dogs, have you had any stories that stand out? Have they destroyed anything priceless? Have they destroyed a couch? I've
Well,
had certain stories similar to that.
I would say Ridgebacks are known as thieves, and we've had a real problem with Luna. table surfing, counter surfing, like, because she's a big dog, so she can jump up and she can grab, the stick of butter, even if it's pushed back.
Right.
So we've had to become really careful, and anything you leave out on the table or the counter, like, I've tried a lot of different things to discourage her from that. She has a voracious appetite. So we've well, I've learned it's easier to train the humans to keep the food back out of her reach rather than train her. So that's my only complaint with her. It's just, I even, like, someone told me, you can get this like electrical pad that will give her a little jolt if she
Right.
but I tried it once, but and I filmed it. It was kind of funny to see her like shocked as she's like, but they know what they're doing. So I usually just try and have a long, stern conversation with them. And what I've found that one of my trainers taught me is that if you gasping is like an international, a universal language that animals understand. When they do something wrong and you go, like, immediately
Right.
the ears go back and they know, like, they messed up. So, like, to me, that's more effective than yelling, is that you just act shocked by gasping, and they really feel that. And also, another thing that I learned from the trainers is that when I want their attention, instead of using a little hand clicker, I just go, and they just like snap to attention. All right, it's time to release. It's time to go outside, whatever it is. So,
Have you had a
one of the
refresher
things that
course
I've
with any
learned.
of your trainers? Since it sounded like your training goes back a ways. Have you had any
Yeah, it was a long
intermittent?
time ago. We have a pet resort that's next door, and I'm good friends with the owner. And so he would pass along some tips and tricks if I'd ever run into any sort of behavioral things. And he would also give us boarding when the whole family goes out of town. So it's pretty convenient, but I find other people asking me for advice with their dogs a lot,
Right.
which I kind of like.
So on the 311 website, you guys have a CBD store, and one of your products is bacon flavored CBD oil drops for pets. Can you explain to me the usage for that? Is that to chill them out or?
You know, I would say that I would, it definitely, that seizures has been the thing that a lot of people swear by CBD for. Inflammation in the joints and pain. A lot of people say it helps with, and some calming. So there's a lot of anecdotal research about what the CBD helps with. So yeah, I for me, if I was going to use CBD, which I do sometimes, I would have a mint flavor or something, but dogs will not eat that. So we have the bacon flavor for them. Other than that, it's the same, medical grade CBD that you have for the humans, but
Mhm.
you need a dog oriented flavor. So that's why we have the bacon flavor.
Okay. Well, hey, I guess everybody loves bacon. I was going to say dogs love bacon, but that's true for us all.
Yep.
Well, listen, I wind up each episode with what I call the zoomies, and that's just the 5 last questions in quick succession. So the first one I know the answer to because it's on your Instagram in photographic evidence, but is, do you kiss your dogs on the mouth?
Absolutely.
That's the answer. That's the answer I want to hear. I know it in 30 odd shows, it's probably been split, but yeah. Question 2 is, have any of your dogs anywhere down the line, and again, I think I know the answer from you saying that your dogs went on tour with you, but I'm looking for shameless name dropping. Have they licked anyone famous?
Um, well, I would say I've had dogs that licked the members of Incubus, like I mentioned, and I think I had a dog when we were hanging out with Venus Williams. So there's another name drop
Oh,
for you.
nice. Very good. Very good. A little outside the lines there. Question
Yeah.
3 is, if you can give, let's say, any of your 3 dogs now, do they have a theme song or walk up music to the plate? What would it be?
Um,
Or do you tend to sing any song to them in their presence that kind of is inspired by their being?
I make up a lot of songs with dogs' names, but I would say probably that when I'm getting ready to go on a run, I'm getting psyched up with some pounding rock music. So if there was like some Led Zeppelin or something, that would be their cue of like, all right, we're getting to get ready to go for a run.
Excellent. Good taste. Good taste. Question 4, do you have a dog voice? Do you speak to them in a certain voice? I know you do. You're stern when you need to be, but do you have a cutesy voice?
Yes, I have the bellowing, disciplined voice and the who's a good boy voice.
And do you ever, on the flip side of that, do you ever put a voice for them? Do you ever personify them or give them, their thinking voice?
Yeah, sometimes I'll go with the playful yet confused voice that River would probably have.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, I can see River's probably easier to voice than Luna. And last but not least, is there a dog organization, a charity, a groomer, a walker that you just want to give props to?
Well, let's see. Topanga Pet Resort does great work with also training like guide dogs and stuff like that. But I support that the emotional help that animals can give, and anybody that facilitates that gets my vote.
All right, good enough. Good enough. Anything to self-promote? Do you have anything coming up the end of April, early May, rest of the summer?
Yeah, we've got various gigs. It's going to be a busy time, and we're also working on some new music. So please stay tuned to 311.com for forthcoming events and announcements.
All right. Well, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to give me the stories behind River, Luna, and Django. Django was a surprise to me. I didn't see him on the line, so that was a bonus. But thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, Tim. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care now.
All right. Bye.
All right. Thank you to 311's Nick Hexum for coming on the show and talking dogs with us. The dog service Nick is giving a shout out to is Topanga Pet Resort, who for many years were dedicated to the care, boarding, and training of guide dogs and are now open to the public to provide that same quality care and training for your beloved pet. To learn more or make a reservation, visit topangapetresort.com. Thanks as always for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback, so reach out to us on Instagram at Rocker Dog Podcast and let us know who we should invite on the show. Please join us again next week for another new episode with a singer-songwriter who first performed with her family bluegrass band at the age of 8 and began writing songs at 11. So please join us to find out who that might be. All right, it's time to give my dog a kiss, a belly rub, and thank him for his unconditional love and friendship. So long, everybody.